What's up, college football fans? It's the Mac and Murray Week 1 Rewind Show. Man, what an awesome week. My boy E-Mac was all over the place from Clemson. He was in Miami last night. We're recording this on a Monday afternoon to dive deep into all the big-time action this week. Appreciate the love, the support. Make sure you go follow us on socials, Mac and Murray College Football Show. We're doing film breakdowns. We're doing instant reactions. So go follow us there, Instagram, TikTok. You can follow both of us on our individual Twitter accounts. And obviously follow us here. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that bell notification. We'll have some shorts coming out as well. So a lot of great content. You don't want to miss any of it all season long. EMAC, man, week 1 did not disappoint. Man, it was exciting stuff. Just as a college football fan, good to be back in the rhythm of being on the road, obviously as analysts for us, being on the road and watching some big-time football.
It really was, man. And it was a weekend that just delivered because you never know. Surely there were some upsets and there were some games that didn't go the way I wanted personally, of course. But at the end of the day, like, it was really good ball. I mean, you're talking about 4 games coming down to the last drive of who might win or lose. That's pretty amazing because it's not always that way. There's been years past where you have these really anticipated matchups and then it's just butt whipping, right? Like one team just pulls away and it's just not fun. That was not the case this weekend. And it was incredible to watch. Like you said, we were down in Clemson. That environment was nuts. That was, I mean, that game in general, and we'll talk more about it specifically, but I do want to talk about these crowds and like everybody being back. That was the loudest half, like consistently, of football that I faced. And, you know, I think there was a little fatigue towards the end and stuff of that nature. But, I mean, it was just constant, just pumping sound and really, really good. And then at Miami last night, that was as loud as I've ever heard that place. And I'm sure there's been other great ones that I haven't been to. But those Canes fans were lit and they were feeling really, really good. I mean, those last 2 sacks to end the game, it was as loud as I've heard. So huge shout out to Miami fans showing up and showing out for that game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to get some of your takes from that game and the environment. And is that sustainable? Like, has Mario reached the point now of the brand of Miami being exciting, sexy, where the students want to make the drive to Hard Rock to watch the game, to pack it out, to really create that home field advantage? I mean, that's what's been lacking for Miami, the excitement, the home field advantage of owning that stadium to where it's tough for opponents to come in there week in and week out. And it was, from my vantage point, sitting on the couch eating ice cream last night, it looked like a hell of an environment. It looked like a great time. So we'll dive into all the big time games this past weekend. And then tomorrow we'll be dropping our preview for the week 2, which is not as good. It's not as good, but hey, it's college football. And last year I felt like I said not a million times, but a couple weeks weren't supposed to be good, ended up being good. But that's for tomorrow's show. Let's dive into the big time games. The first one, big noon kickoff, Texas going to Ohio State. EMAC, man, both of you and I kind of said that this was going to be a slugfest, more of a defensive battle last week. It turned out to be that 14-7. Really felt like both coordinators were protecting their young quarterbacks. I gave some takes the other day, but want to give you the first opportunity here on this show. What was your reaction from the game?
Yeah, it went about exactly as I thought, you know, and even picking Ohio State, maybe didn't think it'd be quite a touchdown, but, you know, really just from a skill set standpoint, from a way that they were going to defend Arch. Now, I do think Sark, you know, maybe made a little bit of a hiccup in not letting him go and not letting him push the ball downfield. I think I don't have the breakdown in front of me quarter-wise, but at least the first half, maybe the first 3 quarters, it was like every ball he was throwing was a screen or like at the line of scrimmage. And I'm just sitting here like, what is happening? Why are we not, you know, doing this? You know, but I get it. It's tough and you're in a crazy environment. And, you know, I came on our show the other week and just said, I don't know if there's going to be an environment that is too big for him. And this might have been, but it is hard to tell between the play calling and the execution and maybe lack thereof. And then at the end of the day, Ohio State did what I thought they would. I thought they had the better players. I thought that they had the better skills, not in regards to total players, but Julian Sands looked good. You know, he got the ball out. There's a little frustration. You know, I think, you know, early when Jeremiah Smith, he might have missed him on a deep ball, and then Jeremiah had a couple of drops, and I'm just like, what is happening? This is the sloppiest.
Oh, he
football.
Was wide open. He schemed up that deep ball for a tutty. Oh my goodness!
It hurt everybody's soul. And those might be the only drops we see from Jeremiah the rest of the year, right? When he's that good of a player. but just hard-nosed defenses, really tough teams. And this is Clemson, LSU, Ohio State, Texas. I mean, those were national championship caliber games, it felt like. And the defenses, did their thing. Now, both losers of this team, I don't think Texas doesn't have anything to worry about. They're going to be fine. They're going to figure it out. They're going to grow and get better. So don't just jump ship, Texas fans. And then Ohio State, I think there's marginal improvement that they need to show too. But what a test, what a resume stuffer, for Ohio State to get that massive win.
Well, I mean, listen, it wasn't an SEC game, but it does put you behind a little bit when it comes to making to the playoffs. And you do have tough games this year. I mean, to go 0-1 and say, okay, well, we know we for sure have a tough game on the road in Athens against Georgia. We got to go to Florida, which is going to be a tough game. Obviously, you have the game against Oklahoma, and then A&M at the end of the season as well. So now all of a sudden you do worry a little bit with the
margin of error. Margin of error.
The past few years. They've always been just one game out of making it too. So not where you want to be, even though it was not a non-con game. But there's a lot to worry about for Texas, and I think a lot more than just Arch Manning alone. I think the guys around him as a quarterback, it's hard to gain confidence when there is newness up front, offensive line-wise, when there is newness on the outside. And I didn't see a lot of guys getting open. I really didn't. I mean, credit to Matt Patricia and Ohio State defensively, and obviously we know they're elite, especially in the second and third level, but guys were not getting open. I'm watching the tape afterwards at the All-22, and very few times I'm like, oh, Arch should have thrown it there, or he should have thrown it there. Maybe a little bit here or there, timing-wise, indecisive, but very rare were guys just running wide open to where as a quarterback making my first start in the game, I feel like I can just let it rip. Right. Then obviously the running game, was kind of not as consistent as you have liked to seen it as well too. So if I'm a Texas fan, I'm saying, yes, defense is great. We knew defense was going to be great. No doubt about that. But I am worried that there's some confidence that was lost from Arch Manning, that we don't have as good of skill guys around him. And I am walking away from this game saying too, I don't know if Arch right now in his career is an elevator. And you've been around quarterbacks, you know what I'm saying here. There's quarterbacks that can elevate the play of guys around them. Then there's other quarterbacks that need the guys around them to elevate him. And I'm not saying Arch is never going to get to that point. I'm saying right now as a first-year starter, Arch is not an elevator. He needs a Jeremiah Smith, and he does not have that.
Yeah.
So I am hitting the panic button a little bit about Texas right now, because if you think Texas is a playoff team and you're 0-1, and I look at that schedule and I look at the issues from that offense, I can see two more losses on that schedule.
Sure. Well, how about this? How about we just hover it? Like we have the glass lifted up. We're just hovering over the button. We don't have to press it yet. We don't have to press panic, but we can have it close by. Because here's the deal. You have 3 games where you're scoring 60 plus back to back to back. I mean, this offense is going to be fine. We're going to figure it out. You talk about confidence. Arch is going to get his confidence back, and then you're going to the swamp. Then you're having that same thing. But imagine if it was flipped. Imagine if he had those first 3 games and then went to Ohio State. It's probably a little bit different. It's probably a little bit more juice. Maybe there's even more hype.
I'm not worried about his confidence. I don't think they're as good around him as they were a year ago.
Well, but maybe they will be. It takes real football to get better at football. And we only can practice so much now, and nobody wants to do it anyway. I think it's going to take a little bit of time. I don't think they miss the playoff. I think they still can make the playoff. But it's not the skill from a year ago.
I don't know.
Do you feel? If you're thinking that Texas stinks, you think Texas stinks. So do you think Ohio State's really good, or
Texas
they beat?
Stinks first off. I just think that I'm a little worried they're making the playoffs. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I walk away from Ohio State saying the defense is really damn good. Matt Patricia was the perfect hire to replace and become the new DC. We know the skill is one of the best in the country. Jeremiah Smith only had 43 yards. I mean, he did not have a game that we thought, but I think they were protecting Julian Sand. I think it was a good game plan. I think they sat back and said, you know what? Maybe Arch is not that good, or at least not right now. Let's not put our guy in a situation where he has the big mistake. Let's let Texas make the mistake. And obviously, Arch did with the interception and just not playing, obviously, overall, as we just talked about, well in the football game. I thought Julian made some nice plays. They made some nice throws, didn't put him in any bad situations, and just let their defense win the football game.
Yeah.
which I'm fine with. I think they themselves, I saw enough good, and obviously we know their skill, that offense, I have more confidence getting better and better and better and better
Yeah.
throughout the season than I do in Texas's offense getting better throughout the season.
Well, yeah, I think that's super fair and easy to say because of the skill. You're right. And it's just known commodities. We need to know more about Texas. And we'll see. It was a great game though. And it was a fun finish. And you thought maybe up until the very end, these guys are not out of it. The same thing you felt, and I'm excited to hear your reaction to this because I've kind of got past the emotional phase of it, a little bit here. But let's go to Death Valley here, and a great game, a great environment. And I'm going to start here because I need to do some apologizing. You need to do some apologizing later too. We'll get to that. But LSU offensive line played out of their mind. They played so well. I was so impressed watching those guys in person. They handled stunts, handled pressures. I thought that obviously, their offensive coordinator did a great job kind of eliminating that with quick game. And of course, Nuss, balled out. And at the fourth quarter specifically, looked like the best quarterback in the world in regards to college. So it was fun to see that. And I also have to apologize to the LSU defense. They haven't looked like that for 2 years, and they hit on every single guy they brought in the portal, and those guys played out of their minds. It was, again, it wasn't fun. It hurt, but it was fun to watch from, again, a football perspective, a good football perspective, and guys battling. So anyway, let me get out of the way. Give me your thoughts kind of on this game here.
Well, I think everyone knows how I feel about Garrett and Cade, the two quarterbacks in this matchup. I was very high on both of them. I view Garrett as more of a pro prospect than I do Cade, but I view Cade as a really good college quarterback, like kind of the perfect quarterback. Good athlete, can run, can obviously throw the football. We saw, what he did last season. I was hoping he'd make a bigger stride this year with the receivers and, kind of another year of experience. But there was a big gap between those two guys. A major gap. Sitting back watching it with my quarterback lenses on, like Garrett was balling out on the road, hostile environment, and just not phased at all. And you brought up Joe Sloan, the offensive coordinator for LSU. I thought the game plan was incredible, just mixing up. They were committed to the run. They were. They were committed to running the football. They know they have to get better at that. They're going against an elite defensive line on the road, and they said, we don't care. We're just going to keep running it and running it. Quick screens, getting Aaron Anderson the ball in space. That dude's so damn quick and explosive. The big 6'7" tight end as well. I like them mixing him up with him. But it starts with Garrett Nussmeier. That dude is the best quarterback in America this year. Hands down. I wish I was there to witness it, but his elevation from a year ago to even this year was really impressive to see, EMAC.
Yeah, it really was. And two things before I kind of jump into my spiel overall in the game. They both threw for 230 yards. They both threw it for 38 times. Even, Cade's average per completion was better. There was a lot of dinks and dumps and screen game from Nuss. So for me, and it feels that way. It feels like Nuss outdueled him. But then when you see that, and maybe if you watch some of the film and certain things, how can guys have statistically the exact same game minus a touchdown, which that's a big deal. But how can you feel so drastically different about one?
Well, I think the completion percentage is drastically different. You have one guy that completed, 50% of his passes. 50% of your passes is not good. Kind of the benchmark for me, back in the day was like 60%. Can you be over 60%? Now it's like over 65 because of all the RPOs and the quick game. So to sit back and say, oh, they had the same yards and, same average. Okay. But how often were you completing passes? Only 50% of your passes was completed. That ain't good enough, especially if you're an elite quarterback. Cade missed a lot. I showed one on my, on our socials at Mac and Murray College Football of literally he's looking at the seam route. You sent me pictures of this, looking at the seam route. And regardless if it's single high or too high, he needs to rip it. Yeah. It could have been a touchdown. Just rip it. I think saw some hesitation. And I want to ask you this too, because we just talked about Texas and Ohio State and the difference in skill and how that affects a quarterback confidence. I saw a confident quarterback with his skill, and I think a better overall game plan from Joe Sloan, offensive coordinator for LSU. But, Clemson loses their top receiver in the game. But the depth that we've heard all offseason about Clemson's receivers, I didn't see those guys step up in the football game. I didn't see separation. I didn't see explosiveness. And I think that too, we always focus on, hey, quarterback. But where was the help from the running game? Where was the help from the receivers? I didn't see any of that from Clemson.
Right. Where's the help from the O-line? Can we get a second to breathe? It really was a perfect storm. And I'll kind of, dive into my full deal here. I think what was most disappointing or frustrating from a Clemson perspective was the fact that you thought your quarterback was elite, one of the best, if not the best in the country. You thought your receiving core was elite, one of, if not the best in the country. You thought your offensive line was going to be really, really strong and good, experienced, old,
Yep.
ready to take another step. And you thought your D-line was going to be unbelievable. Those four things did not play consistently enough to win. And I think that's what really was disappointing. I think that's what hurts the most, that you're like, what's happening? What is going on? Like, we're competing other places. We're doing things other places. We're doing things inconsistently where you get excited, then you get back down. You get excited, then you get back down. How is this kind of happening? But there's something to say about playing this level of game, and they have good players too. So I think that's kind of the feeling that Clemson fans walk away from this, that kind of hurt stomach feeling of, what the heck did I just watch? And, from that point of view of the wide receivers, and listen, I know you just get it as a quarterback, right? It's always your fault for winning, always your fault for losing. It's just nature of the position, or actually you give credit away. You don't even take credit when it is, your job, which is, it's part of it. Head coach and quarterback, you guys just do that. I think because of the misses, it was too overwhelming for me to blame other people, because that seam route is a touchdown. There's a play on the third down before the last play of the game where he just is, he's looking to the left, and we're going to figure some stuff out. We're going to show this to you guys. We're going to break it down, and it's going to be really fun or sad or exciting, 1, 2, or 3. But he's looking pre-snap, and it was like he was already determined he was going to Bryant Westco to the left. And there's sometimes I get that. There's other times I don't think that's appropriate at all. And he looked to the safety. The safety immediately rocks. It was a too high shell look. He immediately rocks, and it goes to like a cover one man on the other side. And to me, Aaron, that's an immediate indicator, not open. That's not my guy. And it's bang, bang. And he had great protection. He had great time. And if all he did was move his eyes a foot to the right, it's a touchdown, overtime. Here we go. Tyler Brown is wide open. They send house pressure. And guess what? You know that. You know they're bringing pressure. They blitz him 56%.
Dude, they brought the house. Blake Baker brought the house.
That's the most he's ever gone against in his whole career. They blitzed it more than anybody. And there's a couple of things. There's so much. I've got to dial in, dude. There's so many things. We could talk an hour about this game, and we're not going to. So I think that's why I tend to lean on it being his, kind of responsibility and his fault. And you've got to be better, and you have to know, where the outlet is.
He does have to be better. I'm not trying to take blame off Cade.
For sure.
Like I said, he completed 50% of his passes. That is not good enough if you're going to consider yourself one of the best quarterbacks in college football. I'm just saying, like we just talked about with Texas, and you said too, I think you agree with this, there are other issues along with just Cade not playing a good
100%,
game
100%.
that have to be corrected going forward for Clemson. And I do have more, I'll say this, I have more faith in Clemson getting it right this year than I do Texas.
No question. Yeah,
I
think that, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Last thing I'll kind of say offensively is, like, scheme-wise too, we got to help our guy out. There were way too many, just like go balls, like go routes, and guys just kind of getting vertical, not doing anything. I need more crossing. When we're blitzing and it's man, I need guys going right behind the tail, because that's exactly what LSU did. I mean, there was time after time after time. They're going at the heels of the blitz. Dump it off. Here you go. 6, 7, 8 yards downfield, and they're making things happen. Again, I just think collectively the Clemson offense has to take a big step forward. They're going to Georgia Tech in a couple weeks, and that's going to be a big time deal for them. I did think the defense looked better. I thought there was improvement there, and I think that's the best quarterback in the country, we think now.
Yeah.
That was a good job on them. So overall, disappointment there. Huge shout out to LSU. We're putting them as the number 1 team in the country on our poll.
Oh, you're going to say it right now before
I'm letting them know. Okay. I thought that they deserved that. I think that defense
I agree.
played well enough that they deserve that.
I think right now you have one of the best. We knew they're going to be elite offensively. We kind of touched on this in the offseason, at least I did a little bit. Blake Baker is a tremendous DC. This is year 2. They went in the portal, got the pieces they needed. They were going to be better this year defensively. We saw that already in week 1. We know, like I said, they got Garrett Nussmeier, elite receivers. The offensive line obviously excelled. So the things that we need to see, the offensive line handle themselves, check. The defense looked pretty damn good. Check.
Really good.
If we look across the country, the top 10 teams, we have question marks. And that's the problem with preseason rankings. You're like, oh, why are you going to jump LSU all the way above Ohio State? Like, it's a new season. Like, if no one was ranked before this week and you just watched the football game and said who should be where, LSU had the best game.
Yes.
of anyone besides maybe Florida State, which we're about to get to next, had the best game on the road against an elite football team. So I'm with you. Like, I'm happy with, we were texting about that today. LSU for sure, number one team in the country, based on what we saw. The tape, not preseason ranking, just the pure tape
That's right.
and performance. LSU deserves it after that. All right, let's get to the next game. Bama, FSU. I will apologize right now. I whiffed. Florida State fans, I took it on the chin. Y'all were coming at me on Twitter. I said, you know what? You're right. I'm an idiot. I apologize. You deserve your roses. And I said this, it wasn't fluky, EMAC.
No,
That was not
no.
fluky. They beat their ass. They were the better football team. They didn't sneak away with that win or got lucky. They were the better football team on both sides.
Yeah.
And better play calling, more creative play calling. They were faster. They were more physical. They were just purely the better damn football team, which is still a little shocking. But hey, for a team that won they won 2 games last year.
Exactly.
But man, did they look good.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I think, why I'm not like sitting here calling you crazy when you were saying those things, because they were horrendous last year. And that's just, it is what it is. We're not at practice every day. We're not in the weight room. We don't see the work that these guys are putting in. So all we have to go on is who you were a year ago and what did you do and how drastically can you turn that around? Well, we'll know that as the season goes on. And so it wasn't crazy at all. And you saw the Alabama defense a year ago and how physical and fast and flying around. And I was like, yeah, this will be interesting, to see this. And that just, it wasn't the case. And so I have to give them so much credit. I have to give Coach Storms, the strength coach down at FSU, so much credit. Mike Norvell for assembling this team. And ultimately, Tommy Castellanos for playing his tail off and for injecting all kinds of confidence to this team. And of course, Coach Gus Malzahn. So there's a lot of credit to be given around for this. But again, starting with that quarterback, he willed this team to victory. And I think that, that first kind of rushing touchdown that he had where it was a zone read and they had leverage for a second and then they didn't. And this guy hit the corner hard, got into the end zone. I mean, play after play, dude, he just made it. And I think the biggest differentiator to me, and I love your kind of detail either side here, the lines of scrimmage were brutally dominated by Florida State. I mean, guys getting launched back, tight ends getting to the next level, decleating linebackers, and then a defensive line. And they rushed for 230 yards, by the way, and then a defensive presence from Florida State that they were stalemated. They couldn't go anywhere. Alabama rushed for win. Right. Right, 100%.
It looked like Alabama for the least amount of yards. Uninterested.
Yeah, the least amount of yards in like 50 years is what just happened to Alabama.
Alabama looked like they were expecting to walk in there and steamroll like I thought they would, and they got punched in the mouth.
They were listening to you talk. It's your fault. You need to apologize to Alabama, too.
I apologize, Alabama fans. I pumped you up. I mean, that's what it looked like. It looked like a fighter got knocked in the mouth, and then they just couldn't rebound, and they were not interested. And the energy level went down. The want to be physical went down tremendously. So I'm gonna start with Florida State first, and I'll go to Alabama. I think Gus Malzahn was magical with the play calling, with what he did, especially with was it Jalen Lucas, number 12? That dude's freaking fast as hell. Yeah. But the way that he got him the football, I mean, the one time where he motioned him back to running back, and then he had the wheel route for the nice completion down the sideline for almost like stuff like that. Or I'm like, damn, dude, Gus is in his bag.
Right.
Like Gus had a hell of a game play calling. Tommy Castellano, elite speed. I like his arm as well. They looked faster. It wasn't just a physicality. Florida State finally looked like we got athletes again. And obviously having an athlete at quarterback was tremendous, but the athletes around him looked really damn good. And then for Alabama, I said this on a breakdown with Ty Simpson. I thought Ty looked decent. I thought he made some really good throws. I think his timing and footwork at time were off, and he was a little bit hesitant to let it rip at times. But overall, like we talked about with Clemson, like we talked about with Texas, it wasn't. I mean, Ty Simpson to me is like third or fourth in the issues that we saw for Alabama.
Right,
defense got out physicaled, offensive line got out physicaled, receivers were good. I wouldn't say great. I mean, Bernard had a really good game, but Ryan Williams was not his normal self, and obviously got banged up in the second half. Like, Ty is not the biggest problem if I'm an Alabama fan. That defense, which was supposed to be one of the best defenses in the country, far, far below expectations.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. And again, just the way it looked, and it was loud. That thing was rocking through the TV. I can only imagine what it was like in person. And when it gets hopping, man, that's a tough place to play, having played there multiple times. and when they were really good, winning national championships, it's a different beast. But Earl Little, a guy, kind of safety DB that just physicality, sprinting through guys. I mean, there was a collision on the goal line where probably 9 out of 10 times Alabama's expecting to score a touchdown right there, and he just comes through blazing. Reminded me of Derwin James, just knocking dudes out, making a big stand there. But again, going to the offense, I think they can probably take another level. I don't know if it'll quite be the same amount of explosive nature as Auburn when they were going to the national championship, but I don't see why not. I think they have the guys.
I don't know. I love the speed, man. I
do
did.
too.
I was really impressed, and I was really impressed, obviously, with Tommy at quarterback and what he brought to that game. I mean, if he can stay healthy, he kind of reminds me of like this year's Cam Ward. Does he not a little bit?
Sure. Yeah.
Like just that playmaking, explosiveness, swagger. Cam got a lot of swag. Tommy feels like he's got a lot of swag to him too. That's infectious. And like everyone in that locker room now believes like, dude, we got one of the premier guys at the quarterback spot. So I think that all kind of plays in together a little bit. Is the fear of Bama gone? Like, is anyone scared of Alabama anymore? After what happened last year, after what happened in this game, like, does anyone look at their schedule and be like, "Oh shoot, we got Alabama"? Like, oh god, like, I think it's gone. I think they're not just another football team. Let's not go crazy here.
I know,
but they're not big bad scary Alabama anymore.
I don't think anybody will have that anymore. Like the transfer portal and NIL and all that has dispersed the talent to where backups aren't staying. It's not just I got to wait my turn. I play 1 year and I'm a first round pick. It's I'm not playing now. I'm out. I'm going somewhere else. And you can't just hold on to these guys anymore. A vast majority of people. And I think that was so much of the fear factor is it was year after year after year. They had the number one class, and they all always stayed. And they're just there. And that's just not the case. So I think the answer is no. The fear factor is not there. And the biggest question is just about the dynasty. Is the dynasty done?
Well, the dynasty's been done. It's been done. I mean, there's no question. They won a national championship since what, 2020? I mean, it's been 5 years. The dynasty's done.
Was 2020 the last one? Man,
it was the COVID year, and like obviously it's a COVID year. So I mean, can we even count that really as a true victory?
Hey, I'm just kidding.
I'm kidding. But no, dynasty's dead, and I agree with you. Like Peter Burns put a tweet out about who is that team that's feared? I was like, I don't think anyone is. I wouldn't say Ohio State is. I wouldn't say Georgia is. I wouldn't say Clemson is. Like this is the great thing about
LSU can turn into it. I mean, what I saw in person, maybe, but again, just like walking in, I don't think you're just like, oh my gosh, here we go.
No. No one's walking as the big bad wolf in college football, which I think for fans is a good thing. All right, let's get to last night's game. Miami taking it to Notre Dame. They look like the better team the whole game. And I mean, Notre Dame, credit to them for finally opening up offensively and letting CJ Carr throw the football down the field. But they were by far the better football team in that football game. I mean, I didn't think it was even close, to be honest, watching it. I'll go to you first on this one. You were there. You saw it live in action. How good is this Miami team? Because I was impressed.
Yeah, I think really good. And I think what was interesting, I don't know if it was on purpose or maybe didn't have to, but as you just said, it always felt like they were in control. It always felt like it was their game, and they just didn't show a lot. It was very vanilla from a game plan standpoint, and maybe that was on purpose. Once they kind of got in the flow, maybe Shannon Dawson and the boys were like, hey, let's just win. Let's just do what it takes. We're kind of running inside zone here, power duo, and let's go. We'll let Carson throw it around a little bit, which I love, seeing him in sync with his receivers. He finished the game on like a 14 or 15 pass in a row run. Kind of after starting 50%, he went kind of nuclear there, and I think he proved that Georgia's problem last year was not Carson back. Like I think it highlighted there was a lot of other issues kind of going around. Now, certainly guys making big plays like that one-handed snag, which was one of the best catches I've ever seen. That was a terrible decision to throw that ball. Like that wasn't good. He's double covered. I thought it was a pick, and then just out of nowhere, you see this Space Jam hand, catch this touchdown. I was like, whoa! But then we talked to him post game.
Yeah, they answered the question about receivers. I think they look good. The Malachi Tony kid, elite. Elite as a true freshman.
They underplayed him.
Plays.
They underplayed him so much. They're like, yeah, we think he's going to be okay. It's a freak of nature. He's a freak of nature. But those two guys, we heard it on the broadcast, and then we spoke to Carson ourselves afterwards, and he said pre-snap, the look for the one-handed catch. He said that's what we saw in practice. We called the play, and I just kind of looked at CJ and was like, here it comes. Like, I'm throwing it to you. Now, it was a little unorthodox how they had to get there, but it worked. And then he said the same thing about Malachi Toney when they got to the sideline. He said, I told you it would be there. And so to me, like, that just showed, that's like the X factor about Carson that not a lot of teams are going to have. He knows what the heck he's looking at. Like, he's been trained and raised at Georgia so well that when he gets that line of scrimmage and he's looking at those safeties, he's looking at alignment, he's looking at how deep are the linebackers, where are the corners leverage, and he knows what he's getting and he knows where to go. Now, can other guys make the play? Can he make the throw? Sure, we'll see. But we saw that a lot where it just looked like he knew exactly what he was looking at.
He's elite, man. Yeah. I know people got on me last year because, listen, I don't know how much you heard me talk in the past 4 years, but I've been pumping Carson Beck since he was a freshman about how good this kid is. And, obviously 2 years ago had a tremendous season. Last year, I've said this list of what were Georgia's issues: receivers, offensive line, and then Carson was 3. Carson was not the biggest problem. Yeah, he had moments in which he was forcing the football, playing uncharacteristic, not protecting it. But I felt like he thought he had to be Superman because the guys around him were not playing to the level that he was at. You're talking about a first-round caliber quarterback, a guy that is probably going to be picked if he continues to play like he can, and we know he can play, will be in contention to be the number 1 quarterback picked this year, which we thought he would be a year ago before the whole crap storm happened with the offense and everything going on. He's an elite talent. He has football IQ. My only question with Carson is just off the field, his leadership and his focus. There was a lot of stuff this offseason and a lot of stuff that you heard from Georgia locker room that just questioned him off the field. And if he can clean that up and be a leader and be a good teammate and be just one of the dudes in the locker room, there is no doubt Carson Beck will be, like I said, in contention for the Heisman, and he'll be in contention to be one of the first quarterbacks taken off the draft next year. He is that good with the football in his hand as a quarterback. And you alluded to high football IQ. Love Carson. Great first game for him. Great receivers. But really, I'm going to give some love to the big boys up front. My goodness, how good is Miami's offensive line, Matt?
They're freaky, man. And they did exactly what I kind of thought. Only gave up 2 TFLs to a really good defense. Arguably one of the best, if not the best defense a year ago. Only gave up 1 sack, and that was kind of a weird overload situation. It was a great call. It was a better call than what the offense had. And they moved the ball. They're running it at will. Mark Fletcher averaged closer or over, to 4.5 yards per carry. And again, I think it was really vanilla. I think they could have done more if they wanted to. So everything was kind of proven. It's nice when it does happen. It's interesting when it doesn't, but it's nice when it's proven of what you think and what you've seen when it translates to a big time game. And I think it just goes to show, this team is built and has been built over the last couple of years the way to win championships. And that's what you saw here. I mean, and to go to the defensive line really quick, and I would love to hear your thoughts on CJ Carr, because I did think he was ready for the moment. He was poised. He was not afraid. And, to the end of the game, he was ready to go. But anyway, looking at that defense, that was the Achilles heel last year. That's why they were kept out of the college football playoff, because they couldn't win with the defense, and they can this year. And that defensive line was hunting. They were giving those guys fits all day long. I think they ended with 3 or 4 sacks, handful of TFLs, and to end the game, walk it off with 2 sacks back to back. Your best players, hey, we need you to go make one play,
baby.
And they did it twice. That was it was really impressive to see. I think Miami heads and shoulders better than where they were a year ago from a complete team standpoint.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they can win the lines of scrimmage. Offensive line, they can dominate. Defense line, that's where it starts. This is still football, and they have elite play, it feels like, on both sides of the line of scrimmage. You have an elite quarterback. Now we go to the skill positions, and those answer the big question. So I really, really like Miami going forward. I mean, that was a massive win against a really good football team, obviously Notre Dame. Let's go touch on CJ Carr real quick. I liked him, man. I was a little bit frustrated with the game plan early on.
I was too. It was a lot like Texas, dink and dumps and not giving it to Jeremiah. It was weird.
No,
it was weird.
No love for Jeremiah early. No run. I mean, the first 7 plays, 6 of them were passes, I believe. Yeah. And all of them were dinks and dunks. And I don't mind it so much early on because you want to get a young quarterback get going. The weather was kind of iffy. I'm sure the ball were a little bit slick at times. You're going against a hostile environment, but it just felt like they waited to the second half to start pushing the ball down the field. They waited to the second half to really get Jeremiah going a little bit. I think everything was just for Mike Denbrock, the offensive coordinator for Notre Dame. It felt like, and I love him. I think he's a tremendous OC. I felt like he was a step late
Yeah.
or even two-step late in the football game, getting Jeremiah touches, trying to push the ball down the field a little bit more. It just took a little bit long for him to get comfortable with CJ, to get into the rhythm of the game truly, and then by then it was just too late.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, and I said it always felt like Miami was a step ahead on
Uh-huh.
both sides of the football.
Uh-huh.
Offensively, they were moving it well. At times, they couldn't obviously finish it off, the botch snap on the field goal, but they had the momentum, and it felt like Notre Dame was just kind of waiting to release the beast. In a game like that on the road, you wait too long, you're going to lose. And they
Right.
waited too long and put themselves in a situation where 2-minute drive, young quarterback, and that defense, it just was not going to happen.
Correct. Correct. And I will say again, the fight from CJ, the fight from that team, they never quit. It was
No.
21-7 at one point, and
Yep.
I'm calling my friend Jordan Cornett, a Notre Dame grad, and saying, hey, this is about to get so ugly. And he's sitting there all sad, little puppy, and then they come storming back, and they get it within a one score, and I think they had a 3-and-out after that, and you're just like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
This is going to be really interesting to see how they finish. I mean, they scored 17 in the fourth quarter, so certainly things to grow on. I think that you're really excited if you're a Notre Dame fan about the future with CJ and the growth that
Yep.
you'll continue to see, from this team. But you're right, from a play calling standpoint, like let's let it rip now. Now that you got that game out of the way, it's time to go full speed from Jump Street here. I think we need to head back down to Atlanta to talk about the Gamecocks, because I've got some thoughts on that game. Probably more so we'll talk about South Carolina. That first drive was arguably the best first drive I've ever seen. Like, they executed so well, and it was just like sweet passes. You got a fullback crossing the whole thing. You dump it to him. He's knocking guys out. The next play, you do a tight end, very similar deal, pushing the ball downfield, and then you just let Lenoris be freaking Cam Newton. And the way he exploded through that hole, dude, I had so much PTSD from the Clemson game last year. I was just like, oh, God, here we go. And then it just stalled out, and it just was nothing until we had a punt return for a touchdown. Watching that offense, watching him, and he finished great. He had that great bomb touchdown. Nick Harbor, is catching passes now, which is great, and scoring long touchdowns.
Well, I mean, he dropped 2 or 3. So, he finally caught the post route, but there were missed opportunities and points with drop passes from Nick Harbor, though, too. So
what do you make of it? I mean, because I think a lot of people think Lenoris can be a top 5 pick, but there's just kind of that middle part that just, it's got to be better, and get the guys the football, control that thing. And I don't know, there's a lot of talent.
Same thing, the guys around have to be better, though, too.
Yes, I agree.
You did have 2 drops from your main target in the football game, Nick Harbor. That's points, that's yards right there, that's rhythm, that's first downs. And then I don't think Mazio Bennett had a catch in the football game. That's a talented kid from a year ago that needs to find ways to get touches. So, first game, it was better. I'll tell you this, it was better than the first game it was a year ago. I was on the call for them against Old Dominion last year, and that was as bad as it could possibly get. If Old Dominion's quarterback doesn't fumble the ball inside their own 5-yard line, they'll probably win the football game. So, at least you're starting off better than you were a year ago. To me, I think the offense is going to be fine. Lenoris Sellers is going to be elite. You saw that throughout the ball game. I think Nick Harbor hopefully continues to move in the right direction. Hopefully Mazio Bennett gets going in week 2. My big question was, what's this defense going to look like? How good are they going to be? And Dylan Stewart, as good as advertised, as we know, is an absolute beast off the edge. And I thought the defense played well. So I walked away saying I feel pretty good about South Carolina, to be honest.
Yeah, I think so, specifically on the defense. It's more of the offense. I thought I'd see more competence throughout the whole game there, but I was thrilled with the defense. And let me tell you, Fred Johnson, number 0, that dude is an animal. He was flying around making plays. I think he had double-digit tackles, putting his hands on the foot, all kinds of stuff. It was freaky to see some of the plays that he was making and, just kind of forcing the issue. And then, you look on the other side with Virginia Tech. I love what I saw from the defense. Now, those guys had 4 sacks on Lenoris Sellers, which is very impressive. A lot more tackles for loss. But offensively, it just still leaves me yearning for more. And I love what I saw from Donovan Green and Aiden Green, but just more. Just get more. 11 points. You had a safety in there, a bunch of field goals. You got to turn those field goals to touchdowns. I think you saw growth to be excited about. The good thing is you got a really good opportunity this week. Vandy's coming to town. and they play very similar as South Carolina offensively.
Yep.
So you got to be ready. You got to be ready to go.
All right, one real quick. Just want to get thoughts before we head out of here. Syracuse, Tennessee. Syracuse this year, nowhere near they were a year ago. Let's just be honest. Nowhere near where they were. Joey Aguilar looked great. Deep ball looked great. Accuracy with, the big thing was accuracy. You saw some issues early on with some of the quick game on some of the bubbles were just a little bit off. But listen, no one's going to be perfect. Let's not be nitpicky here on every single throw. Guys are going to have their moments. Overall, major win for Tennessee when it comes to the quarterback spot and the confidence that he gained in the vertical passing game. The defense looked good. The running game looked great.
Yeah.
But Syracuse, man, they are, and I thought Angeli made some good plays, but man, they are nowhere near to the caliber they were a year ago.
No, and they lost. I mean, they lost so much from the skill position, standpoint, and obviously Kyle McCord. I think Steve could end up being pretty good, but Kyle was just different. And we're on the apology tour, so I got to be here too with Tennessee, man. That offense looked really good. It looked really good. They executed at a super high level, and listen, we're learning about guys as they go. Forgot that Star Thomas transferred there, my guy. And the things that he was able to do. So that was fun to see him, kind of step up and show out, what he did at Duke for that year that he was there. Know him very well. And then, like you said, Joey looked good. Joey got it going and pushed the ball downfield. I was from like a scheme perspective, I was shocked that Syracuse ran the ball 44 times. I mean, that was nuts, but I mean, it relatively worked, I guess. I mean,
2.3 yards average, 2.3.
Great. But it's a big, SEC D line. I don't know. Let's throw it. Let's sling it, man. Let's throw it for 50 plus.
I mean, maybe it was like, hey, we don't feel good about our defense. We got to slow the game down. So we got to run the football, which
it just seemed like anytime anything good happened for Cuse, here's a 2-play touchdown from Tennessee, which was just brutal.
So hey, man, maybe I was a little down on Tennessee heading into the season.
Yeah.
Still like to see obviously that against better competition, and we're going to see that in 2 weeks. I know a lot of Georgia fans that are hitting me up like, "Ooh, we're a little bit more worried about going to Knoxville on September 13th than we were a couple days ago."
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden that game feels pretty big, pretty legit. Tennessee has ETSU. Georgia has someone I don't even know this week, so it doesn't really matter. So both teams will be 2-0. Both teams will be feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
That's going to be a primetime matchup with, obviously Tennessee hoping to be a little bit better offensively against Georgia and their defense. All right. That is the week 1 recap. We appreciate you guys. Lots of love. Once again, we'll be pushing out our preview show for week 2. We got a great guest again to break down the Michigan versus Oklahoma game. That will come out on Thursday. A lot of content, but go like this video, subscribe. Go follow us on all of our socials because we'll have some fun stuff coming out there as well. Mac and Murray College Football Show. And that's it.
Okay.